Yikes. You're right. Welcome. You're listening to 102.3 FM. We honor independent voices. This is WHIV. And this is Monkey Mind with your host, Rob Owen. And we talk things brain cancer and living in your moment. So it's been an active week. Had a review of my MRI of back in, okay, I gotta do the backstory. Back in 2005, I was diagnosed with GBM brain cancer. And through the process, the doctors kind of gave me the typical 6 months to live. So was that 14 years, 15 years out of that? Still kicking. And every time I go into these doctors' meetings, it gets a little bit more, because I just, was it 2 months ago, or I don't know, something like that. 2 or 3 months ago, I just got another MRI. They showed a suspect area over my brainstem. And with a previous GBM brain cancer that I was diagnosed with was on my right frontal lobe, which was a good spot for them to have surgery. And this latter spot, this brainstem, is considered not so advantageous for going in and cutting stuff. So we'll see on that. But what was I going with that? So yeah, so he reviewed that, and he basically, the doc was saying, because there was talk at first that maybe it was, as I was incorrectly calling it for eons of, or since first hearing about it, I was calling my stuff dead tissue, where it's not the case. It should be called scar tissue, which tends to look the same as if you get an MRI of your brain. Your scar tissue will look very much the same as your cancer. It just shows up the same color spectrum or something like that. The density of the cells, I think cancer. And I'll say this right off the bat: I am definitely not a medical professional, and I get mixed up on this stuff a lot. But I'm just giving you my spin on it, my experience as a very much a layperson with it. So yeah, so that was kind of, he said, he really defined it. He thinks it's a 2, which the cancer, like in your brain cancer, I don't know if it's like that throughout your body, but I know in your brain it goes from like a 1, 2, 3, 4. The first cancer that I got diagnosed with, which they deemed it a 4, or the short term for it is like a GBM. It stands for a glioblastoma. I always mix it up. But I mean, it's kind of one of, maybe part of my practice for survival has been kind of sort of ignorance and bliss, sort of not, I guess, focusing too much on what I don't really control. And about the only thing that I guess I control is my mental attitude, though I would say I act definitely like I don't a lot of the time, but I can practice like I do, because I know that I am technically in charge of that. It's just that my ego. So that relates also to why this show is called Monkey Mind. It's I believe, originally a Buddhist reference to our constant habit of thinking, which it kind of acts like a spastic monkey that constantly wants to do stuff, is no matter if it's harmful to itself or you as the core host. And also it's like a duality, I think, because you're aware of your thinker and you can listen to it and stand back, you have a separate consciousness or awareness that's inside of you that is, I think, more your truer essence, or I think yeah, I'll go with that, truer. It's all true, I guess, though. And it's all about things about accepting what is, I think, is very much a good practice for survival and being. And I guess too much of the time we get really fixated on survival when it should be about really appreciating and practicing gratitude for one's moment. I think a lot of that is what I kind of wrap myself around on going through this process of health, and with your mortality, people saying, "Hey, well, you got this," and I guess some of the stuff, like now, I don't really have any like hurting symptoms from it. I mean, I'm clearly cognitively wise, I function at a different rate, and I noticed that also that a lot of my practice early on was really going easy on myself and trying not to judge myself too harshly. Like I wasn't thinking like I did before. And I think it's such a good thing, regardless of your health, just going easy on yourself and kind of not judging yourself or judging others, and really making that like a daily practice. But yeah, the isolation on this stuff is more I'm hearing it. I'm kind of wondering where I should really go with even this radio show or what I should do. Because my thought was, because when I went through being diagnosed with a GBM and then basically telling me that my chances of survival were very slim. I mean, they did that in a relatively nice way, but they still did it nonetheless, and for good reason. I'm not hearing or seeing people with much of a survival rate with being diagnosed with GBM. And my last, I think that, like I was saying earlier, is like that's going with that kind of just ignorance where I didn't really think about that at all going through the process. Like putting on a timetable, I'm really not that into time either. I'm really into practicing my moment. And I'm not very great at it, but that's a part of practicing, and you always have your next moment to make up for messing up in your previous moment. So it's a kind of never-ending forgiveness loop that you can start getting into, and it takes a lot. It takes a lot of practice with it, and just not judging yourself too much, or forgiving yourself when you do mess up. It's kind of a beautiful thing. But yeah, it's a strange journey with a bureaucracy of our culture and hospitalization and even treatments, and what's chosen the priority of being treated in our culture with our with our funds. Where does the research money go? How are they focusing on that? Who gets priority? And I just recently found a new hospital, which is just awesome. I was hearing just this, this very expensive monthly bill I was looking at, and then it's like who you know or who you run into, and then it just turned out to be very reasonable at this other place. I'm like, wow, this is just so juxtaposed, that it's truly so like cancer. Was it subjective? I mean, it's like who you run into, uh, where the cancer originates, the origins of it. You know, medically, who gives you the quote when you call the insurance company, who answers the phone. I've had that numerous times where I've called up and I speak to one person who's absolutely no help to me, and then I call a second time and I reach somebody at customer service and they just walk me through the entire process, and it's awesome. Um, I guess it goes back to really, and then on those two things, it's really a chance to practice our gratitude and our appreciation for what we have. And I think that's a key thing in just basically your journey here, and with all this stuff, regardless your circumstance, is really practicing gratitude and appreciation for your moment. Because that's really all any of us have, is just right now. And I think that's a very healing and comforting factor in itself. And just really kind of searching for the joy. I mean, I get, again, some stuff, it's like you can't, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around, okay, how can I find joy out of this? This is, you know, a horrible moment or something. But yeah, I think it goes back to judging. I know it seems weird. I don't really have my thoughts wrapped around that either, but it is in that. And like you can watch, like nature is pretty beautiful, but nature is also very, can be just utterly brutal. I mean, you don't have to watch too many shows to figure that out. Just the you know, the whole survival of it. You know, animals living off of other animals, and just the brutality of that. But I mean, it's natural. It's a part of our experience here, and I think it goes back to that judging. I think the answer is in that, is a lack of judging and a lack of really being grateful for your story, for your journey. And yeah, I think that's really where the practice is with that, and where yeah. So what was I? Okay, that scar. The doctor's appointment. The doctor's thing was pretty interesting because I have two doctors now, and one is more of a surgeon, and the other one is an oncologist. And I'm not all the greatest with my terminology, but I just got on when they saw this. So now he's kind of thinking this is pretty much, though my last, stuttering here, my last, 3 MRIs have been with no change. So that's pretty cool. But these last 3 MRIs, I have been on what's called, I think, I always butchered it because I don't know if it's an A or an O, Timidor. And so I have been on chemotherapy. So I was off of the chemo for like, I don't know, 14 years, something like that. And so I just been kind of going about my business for the most part. I just do, I was doing yearly MRIs just to check on that GBM area. But like I said, this one is pretty far off from that. This is over the brainstem, which is kind of, I'm not 100% remember where it's at. But I know, and they had mentioned my cerebellum, so I think it's around that. Where that's at your base of your brain. But I think they were concerned because I had what's also called brain origin cancer. So it did not metastasize like from somewhere else in my body into my brain, which tends to be more of the norm. And a lot of people like, if you have brain origin cancer, it almost never metastasizes out of your brain because there's a blood-brain barrier, which is part of the some of the issues with treating brain cancer. whereas things can go, well, I don't know, that just didn't make any sense, what I just said. But yeah, because things can go into your brain. Well, that's why they can treat us with, I can take an oral medication, I assume, and stuff like that. But I think they're saying that they could probably have better treatments if there wasn't as much of that barrier. I don't know, I may have just butchered that whole part. But like I said, I'm no doctor, not a doctor. But yeah, so anyway, they show no changes. So it's always a good thing, though they'd like to see it, I guess, reduction of it. Though we were thinking at first there was potential for it to be more of this, what I was calling dead tissue, which is actually scar tissue. So when you go through these protocols, like the surgeries, I think even, and the chemos and the radiation especially, kicks off a lot of scar tissue. One of the treatments that I did, and I'll go through maybe later on in the show, I'll try and go through an overview of the protocols that I took, because it's kind of unusual and already unusual to have someone like myself with a GBM 14 years out of being diagnosed. It's very, very rare. And the more I get into it, the more it, you know, kind of creeps you out some, but like, okay. But yeah, I may have lost my train of thought on that one. But yeah, so the scar, yeah, so, okay, I was talking about the results from the MRI. See, I have cognitive stuff. I drop out a lot of things that I'm thinking of. I used to be so bad off that I couldn't really even get out maybe three sentences or a sentence, or I couldn't stay on train of thought. And very, very frustrating at first. And then I almost kind of turned it into like a shtick, like it was like a comedy act where I like, oh, lost that one. So you just found the humor in it. And I think a lot of my, not all of it, I had some pretty rough spots, but a lot of it, I really tried to look at the humor of things when I was going through my cancer experience. I liked joking around a lot, and I liked seeing the kind of irony in things and getting all beat up. And yeah, I definitely wanted to kind of go out more laughing than crying, for sure. But yeah, so the tumor, so the dead, so what he was showing me, that looked like my GBM, which has like the area where they moved a lot of tissue. So in that get-go, they did a brain surgery. How I got introduced to it, which is kind of an interesting thing if you're process, and don't get hypochondriac. Like, you probably do not have brain cancer because you have headaches. Anyway, but I had this period of just massive headaches, and they were like, I associated them with, I was getting the family trait of getting migraines because my dad had them and my sister does too, but I never had them. So as that progressed, I was like, wow, these are brutal. Because I couldn't remember like anything. It would like take my memory and my thoughts and just make it a blank slate. So I was like starting out, I was like, okay, where am I? Yeah, so that's how that started. And then eventually I was trying to get on antidepressants because that was making me pretty depressed. And then also I wasn't really telling anybody about it. I was really trying to keep it together. So I was trying to function. So that was a mistake on my part for sure. I should have been much more open about that to others. Though at that time, you just feel like you're really, I don't know, like copping an attitude, or not an attitude, but you're like, I don't know, flaking out, or like suck it up, But because the subtleties of it, I mean, it comes in kind of subtle, and then it started getting just where it was just knocking me out. I would have to like sit down on like a floor or something, just in weird places, just to manage. And then I think it started creeping in that I started having Epimol. I may be saying that totally wrong. Anyways, the type of seizure that you black out, you get on the floor and you start shaking and you don't remember anything. And then you like come to, and so I started doing those. So I started coming to in different places, and then your mind's like you're coming to fresh. You're coming to kind of out of it. So it's like you don't even really get that connection. Took me a while to even figure out that I was having seizures and stuff. And it had this one thing, I was like sharing this because it was just so bizarre. I would have, once I started to figure out, I guess, that I was having them, I had this thing that I would do before one was coming up, and I would turn to look over my left shoulder, like real creepy, like real slow. I'd look over my left shoulder and I'd be like, uh-oh, it's about to come. I was like, so then I'd like either sit down or get myself in a place where I wasn't just gonna like bust my butt. And yeah, and then I'd come to, and then, I can, if you're going through anything similar to that, Keppra is what worked for me. It's like this little oral pill you take. It doesn't work for everybody, but that was like nipped mine pretty much in the bud. But during that time period, then afterwards, when I got prescribed that, I had the worst, just, I guess, I don't know if you call it short-term, long-term memory or something. I was just not remembering to take the thing. So I would have to have people like bring me my pill. It's like I'd notice, I just did it again. And I'd wake up all sore because I had a retail shop and I worked it by myself a lot. And I'd wake up in different places in the shop and I'd be like, I need my pill. And I remember I had some kids that kind of befriended the shop that I had, and so I'd call them up and say, hey, would you go by my house and ask my wife at the time, would you get her to give me about my medicine? And then the kid would, I think one time he bicycled it over to me. I'm like, awesome, man. It was so sweet. But and I had people help me off the floor at the place too. So yeah, so this is a real crazy. So much of life, you just gotta like laugh at it a little bit, find the humor in it, and the joy. I know some of it is kind of out of reach, especially when it affects loved ones. But I guess if you need to encourage laughing with them and just really focusing on appreciating the moments, the nows that you have together, it's a good thing. So yeah, so it's like reaching out to the community of people with like what I have is just gotten kind of weird because I'm just not. I don't know if my case is just that freaky. That I don't know. It just seems like everybody is kind of in sync with that kind of, even today, with that 6 months or less diagnosis of that you're not going to make it. So it's just kind of weird because I just had someone contact me. It was pretty interesting right out of the blue with on Facebook. And she was just started, or it was, I guess, Messenger. I get confused on the two, like, messaging sites that are on my phone and in my computer. I know one's really related to Facebook, and then the other one's related to, I don't know what. But yeah, so she started contacting me, and I was like, wow, this is great, because her husband. So I was trying to share with her my my protocol and just kind of the mental stuff that I like to do to stay kind of positive and kind of like one thing I was taught by my wonderful Reiki and friend Cecilia was not to fight with cancer or not to battle it or not to make it like an enemy. It's it's a natural thing like everything else, like what I was saying about practicing not judging as much and basically asking cancer as like, you personify it, asking it to like leave your body. Like I always like the analogy like a friendly bouncer. And you just say, sir or ma'am, you've had enough. Please please leave. And but yes, you don't make things like a negative, because it's like fighting very much begets more fighting. Negativity, you shoot it out there, gets more negative. I think it's just so much about, yeah, I just forgot where I had started with that. I just started walking down this path. But yeah, it's a really interesting. Oh, I was saying about the helping others. Like, I was thinking about sharing my story, but then some of it seems so, I don't know. Okay, well, back to this gal. So this gal contacts me out of the blue, really cool, asking me all kind of questions. She apparently is crazy into it. As you can kind of hear, I am not that educated on it. I don't read that much about it. I don't make it like a focal point of my day or one of my main interests. Though in a lot of ways, my ego loves my monkey mind, or my ego loves being kind of that victim or something, or overcoming it. I mean, I can't say I don't. It gets you sometimes more attention, and that is kind of nice. It's a tough way to get it, I guess, but you get a cold and you get kind of babied or mothered. It's kind of sweet. But I guess it is what it is, and I have what I have, and so this is just my reality now. But not like I can choose. Well, maybe I can, but I don't know if I practice the skills to choose so much my health. But I do think that is a case. Your mind and your psyche, I think, is a powerful, powerful healing agent on keeping you healthy and happy. And I think it's about being in your moment so much. I mean, in your moment, like my moment right now, I feel great. And I think if more of us ask ourselves, how are we doing right now? We're doing, almost all the time, we're doing really, really good. And I am going to read one of these announcements here. And this is one that I even did. I hope I get on it, because that would be fun. But this is about entering a film fest from the station. 102.3 FM WHIV proudly presents F-No, also known as Film New Orleans. We are now accepting submissions for the Health and Justice Film Festival, which will occur from May 29th through May 31st at the Broad Theater. We aim to generate discussions and mobilize audience around health and justice through impactful films and moderated panels. Do you have a film to submit? Would you like to get involved? We are looking for sponsors, partners, and volunteers. Submission and event information is available on our website, f-no.org. That's f-no.org. Yeah, so check that out. That should be pretty fun. If y'all haven't been to the Broad Theater either, it's really cool. So I was going to pitch them another idea, because the guy that space that originally was, it was a boxing gym. And when the guy, and he was like a world champion, I believe. I forget his name or his weight class. But yeah, it sounded pretty interesting, because when he retired, I guess he had some bank, and that was his gym. And then he started producing movies. And so he did like all these kind of B movies. And I researched it at one time, but I kind of forgot some of the titles. I have to remember to go back to that again, because I was going to pitch them they should do like a film fest, since they are operating that. And his was like his gym was called like the Hall of Champions or something like that. And he's got a lot of the signage that's still up in the place. And I kind of trained boxing for a few years back before I got diagnosed with brain cancer, and then I guess a little bit afterwards. Maybe, I don't know if I'm remembering that right. But yeah, but that probably wasn't too good for my brain either. You definitely had the little minor concussions, and they say that less and less minor concussions are the case. Each one is very unhealthy for you, and brain damage in a sense. But when I used to spar and stuff, I can definitely remember I was had to eat yogurt because I couldn't like chew because my jaw hurt too bad. But that was kind of fun. But yeah, so the film. So if y'all have a film on health in New Orleans, tune in. So that's a big part of why I have this show is to share the brain cancer experience, and it's also about, I think, as much of that, it's about really being in your moment and embracing that, because that's been such a profound addition to my life post GBM. Has been my introduction to this. I was always kind of into, I'm not sure how to say it. I don't think metaphysical is the way. I don't know. I was always into like trippy stuff. I always liked I always liked that kind of vibe and discussing cerebral thoughts and another thing that I'm into a little bit now that I'd like to get more into is playing with mushroom. We'll call it therapy. Like the hallucinatory mushrooms. I was watching a video and I meant to do some more research on it, and I lost my notebook that I had before, so I'm really winging it today. I didn't have any of my notes. I took even a notebook to my doctor's appointment. I was trying to make notes to talk about on the radio and share, and I had more specifics, but I lost it. But it'll maybe come back to me. But oh yeah, so I lost my notebook, and I'm trying to think where I was before that. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, the mushrooms. Yeah. So I was watching I always quote. I'm always quoting like YouTube shows, and it's interesting. Like a time we're in now where people can share just from all over the place all these little thoughts, and you really got to migrate through this stuff and edit it what you're hearing for sure. And I do that a lot. I think we take too much. We accept too much as being something we should be living. Like I don't think our culture. This isn't. I guess everything is natural, so I want to backstep that. But this is really not a healthy culture, dietary wise. Just in so many ways, we should really be more back out in nature, a lot more. And also I think just our frame, because I really noticed. I noticed this with like when I've gone to church before too. There's such a emphasis on longevity and like living more, where it's not more about quality or being appreciative of what you have now. It's about getting more and just living longer. Where it's like, wait, are you living? Is this quality or is this all quantity? And I know that's right. You want us to die? Well, I was always thinking that too. It's like you're going to heaven. I was like thinking, why didn't people want to go to heaven? It doesn't seem like they really do. They don't want to die. You got to die to go to heaven, I think. I like the trip more that heaven is here right now. Everything is here in the now. And you have access to everything. But like I said, they did remove some parts of my brain, so whatever. But yeah, so the mushrooms, I was watching this YouTube show on it, and it was showing your brain, and I guess they showed it like the connections where they were doing some kind of CAT scan or something. They were showing like the different things that were firing off in your brain. They were showing you a different, like I think they maybe showed a brain just normal, and then a brain on maybe alcohol, and then a brain on cannabis, and then maybe a brain on shrooms. And the shrooms one, and granted, these documentaries are, somebody's could be fudging the numbers a lot. They were showing a lot of connections, like a crazy amount of connections, and they were also saying that something about it. They named the chemical that it is. I mean, they didn't, of course, just say mushrooms all the time. They were calling it whatever it was. And what else was it? it was like, oh, and they said that was really cool. That cued in with me because uh, they were saying that it kicked off your ego, which I'm always trying to practice because that kind of relates to the being in your moment and not get and getting trying to get away from just this constant thinker, the monkey mind. So yeah, so I thought that was really cool. And then I guess over the week, I kind of took some mushrooms. I took a little bit more than I normally take, but then I ended up going back alone to my house, and it was pretty wild. I was noticing I was trying to come away with some epiphanies to share, but like a lot of times they just kind of drift off. But I think it was definitely like, of course, the blah 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 being in your moment. It was definitely that. But I was noticed like when I was closing my eyes, I was like seeing like the imagery and stuff like that. It was just really like uh, connections, just all this like kaleidoscope of. It almost seemed like bands of things coming together. Where I was like in that, and you're basically like stuck. And I'm like, well, God, this is kind of. And I opened my eyes and I'd see my room, and I'm like, all right. And then I go back because it was kind of like I mean, wasn't necessarily a claustrophobic feeling, but it was like it seemed rather, and stagnant's not the right word either, but you really couldn't go anywhere. And so that was a little bit of a quandary with me. And yeah, but it was cool because it was like really trying to, like I wasn't trying to bug out on it because that part was kind of weird because I had been out with people previously, and then you find yourself alone, and you're just kind of, everything's going kind of crazy. And but so I was just practicing kind of like what I was talking about, just being in my moment, being okay with it. It's like, all right, dude, you're kind of here, and this is it. Had to, yeah, it was weird, but a lot of that stuff I think is, and I guess I can't really say that I'm experiencing a lack of ego with that. At least I didn't notice that really, but I was trying to make peace with my moment and not trying to have expectations that I wasn't supposed to be more in this. When I was closing my eyes, I was seeing, but it's kind of cool, like seeing imagery and beautiful um, things connecting, almost like a cellular thing where you're seeing like the interconnections of your body of what is everything, like a matrix of I don't know what, but yeah, it was pretty funny. But and the next day I was a little tired, a little wiped out. I kind of chilled out, but yeah. So I think a lot of it's really cool, and I think that's been such a key thing that's not looked at as much with our evolution. And I mean, you can see it with us in alcohol. I mean, as soon as we started discovering fermentation of stuff and getting high, I mean, we were pretty addicted to that as a culture, especially here in New Orleans, right? Um, and with my chemo, when I do with this Timidar that I'm doing now, my new thing for treating this, I do 5 days on it, and then I do the rest of the month off. And I think that the latest thing is I'm hearing that I've only got to do this maybe for 6 months, and then we're going to look at it and then think about kicking me off and then seeing if there's any changes. Because right now they can't really biopsy my, or they can, but they don't really want to unless they have to biopsy my this other site because he thinks it's a low grade 2, and yeah, so I don't know. But oh yeah, I was saying about just I think we evolved on this, like seeing this kind of alter. It's like kind of our spirituality. you know, like a little practice and I think it gives you a appreciation, or I'll let you see the little folds in this reality. I mean, it is so subjective. If you look at our senses about how we are grasping what we're around, if you tweak that a little bit, I mean, you're looking at a different world, you know? You really are. It's so kind of myopic on what we're seeing, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's all good, but just saying. I think a lot of hallucinatories give us, and even alcohol, tweaking it allows you to see things kind of in a slightly altered route. And you can get all the same highs completely sober too. But that takes a little bit of practice. I can't say I'm all that skilled at it, but I have gone there before in the past. And on that note, maybe I'll read this other service announcement from the station. Did you know that 102.3 FM WHIVLP New Orleans has been broadcasting for the past 5 years? We are able to honor independent community voices with your support. Like, who else is going to put me on the radio? You know what I'm saying? So give a little. And you can get some swag too. T-shirts, hoodies, fanny packs, and more make for great gifts. Or treat yourself, Nick Caps. I got myself kind of off season for it, but I wore it the other night, a tank top. And the logo, if you haven't seen it, is really cool. It's got like an old tiny microphone on it, lightning bolt shooting out of it. And yeah, so it's pretty fun. Simply go to WHIV.org and click store. That's WHIVFM.org. Thanks, y'all. We are not a radio station with a mission. We are a mission with a radio station. And then the End All Wars, which I always comment about because I'm always tripping on that one. End All Wars. And I think I came away with that. You got to go look in the mirror and make peace with you. Don't judge you. Give yourself a big mental hug. And then share that with the world. That's about all you can do, I think. And don't join crazy groups that would have you as a member. But yeah, so speaking of joining groups, I'm trying right now to join some groups because that woman that I told y'all about earlier on in the show, she contacted me on Messenger just out of the blue, started asking me all kind of questions about how I'm doing with the GBM, like after the effects, what I did. Yeah, she was really like quizzing me a bunch, and I'm totally cool with that. Quiz away. She was acting a little bit, well, maybe that's towards the latter part of the conversation because we texted back and forth a bunch. So I was sharing her with the protocols that I did, which I guess I can go through briefly right now. Maybe I'll try and remember that and come back to this. So the protocols that I did, like I said, I first started getting headaches. I was having seizures. I was trying to get on antidepressants because I was really freaking out, and I was pretty bummed. And so then I got an MRI. As soon as I got that MRI, they just freaked out. I was over at Ochsner way back when. Like I said, it's like 2005. And it was, a little stressed out because of Katrina and stuff. So I don't think Ochsner was running at full power yet, but it was pretty close. But everybody, it was pretty strung out from the whole Katrina thing. But anyway, so as soon as they saw my MRI, I think it was either the day after or the next day, I got brain surgery, my first brain surgery, where the doctor, his nickname was God, was going to remove some tissue and go in there. And they did. It was like a big event. I think it was represented to me that this was almost going to cure my cancer or remove it. After the successful surgery that I had, I found out that it did not. It was only the very beginning of my treatment. So that was a brain surgery at first. So then I guess so then I went to a second opinion and I was having lots of pain. I felt like I had broken a rib somehow during the surgery, and and then I ended up flying with my dad to MD Anderson for a second opinion. That doctor saw that I had emboli from the surgery, and he immediately checked me in, and he looked at my MRIs and felt like that this was a GBM, and I instantly felt much more connected to the, I guess, I don't know, just the vibe of that doctor. He was like, everything he told me was pretty bad, but or not like I wanted to hear, but I was just really freaked out. But anyway, so he checked me in. They treated my emboli, and then he put me on, or I agreed to choose a protocol of radiation and Timidar or Dor, or whatever it's called, temozolomide, I think is the something like that. Anyway, so which was pretty much the protocol, though that was back then. So I did the brain, and I did another biopsy brain surgery there. So they went in and took out a bunch of tissue, and so it was pretty. That was pretty cool. And then so then after that, after my did not finish, as I know, my temozolomide protocol, but I did finish the radiation. I got to ring the bell, and so then after that, I think we did an MRI, and then that doctor that I just told you about that discovered the emboli and all that kind of stuff. He looked at and he said it's gotten worse. It's spreading, and the density areas are kicking up. He's like, I don't think you have. I'm about to do this new protocol, and that was going to be Avastin CPT-11, and he said, I just don't think you have the time to do mine. But he said, I have an old colleague that ironically is back at West Jefferson, which is where I was living, of course, New Orleans, and as you cross the river, but close enough. So so I went back and did that, and that was like the big chemo where they inject you, and it's like hours of doing it, very nauseating. So I agreed to that, basically coming back and then doing that, and that's what I did. And that, I think they're still doing both of those, but they're not doing it, as I am hearing, together. And that's what they did with me. It was together. And as far as I know, nobody else but me made it through that chemo because it was so sickening. They would pull you off of it. And it made me sick too. I just cheated to get through it because I saw them, and I just thought I was going to be dead if they took me off. So I would stash a waste paper basket underneath my chemo chair, and I just puke in it, and I wouldn't tell anybody. And so I got through the entire protocol, and then we just started doing MRIs, and then they did a CAT scan. They saw that I was really getting like no blood flow to that area, which tended, I think, to mean that because cancer, I think, needs a lot of energy to fuel itself. So we were just doing that. It's again and again. And so I just kept doing. So the CAT scan showed no blood flow. So he basically was saying, I think this is all scar tissue now. So I had a big kind of hole in my right frontal lobe where they'd removed the brain tissue and tumor. And then it had like all the scar tissue that I now call, I used to call it dead tissue, but it's all scar tissue that's around, that looks like spookily, I don't think that's a word, but it looks real spooky because that is how actually even cancer looks. So, but what they do is they typically just do like MRIs, and then they'll do an MRI in the next month or something, and they look for any kind of variation. Because the cancer is just not a stagnant thing, whereas your scar tissue, of course, is. I guess it can grow, though, because the radiation, I had one doctor that I didn't really care for during the process, because medical insurance, changing hospitals, sometimes you hop around. But he was seeing increased tissue scarring, I guess is what I would say, or from the radiation. And that's what they were hoping And there's still an outside shot that this new 2 is actually scar tissue, though it's kind of far off from where they were supposed to be radiating my right frontal lobe. So that's been the suspect kind of part with that. But anyway, so I called up this, no, I didn't call up. So this woman then, so that was basically my protocol. That's what I did. Did I do that? Well, I should type that out, maybe make it easier for people to base that on. So as I'm hearing nowadays, they're doing Avastin or they're doing the CPT-11. And I think they're getting sort of good results. It sounds like the 4s are just real spooky because they just keep coming back, or they just don't go away, and they take out the host, like the monkey mind. Very good parallel, the monkey mind and cancer. Parasites. But hey, you gotta be friendly to both of them. Friendly, strong. Just ask them to leave. With your monkey mind, just try and take notice of it and just realize that's not really you. And I know it's kind of a weird concept, and I need to wrap my head around that more to explain it, but I'll leave it at that. So anyway, I wanted to go back to this. So this person called me up, and she was talking about her husband has a GBM. She wanted to know my protocols and all that kind of stuff. So we're going through the process of it, of me telling her, this and that, and so I just get easily distracted. Sorry, I see somebody walking out there. So yeah, so we're going through the thing. So I'm giving her my perspectives on some of this stuff, and then on the tail end of it, she just kind of, maybe she tells me this in the front. I just don't read text very well. I mean, I definitely have made errors on that, and so yeah. So then at the tail end, it comes out her husband has already died, and so she's just into this as a going through the process. I mean, just looked very, very grieved by losing her guy, and I'm just really sweet. And he had kind of a, she sent me a picture of him and stuff. He looked pretty fun, but yeah. So then it's like on that, and so I'm like, well, how did you find me, and how many others are you? Because you sound like you're really into it. Like you're doing a lot of research. Like she was asking me all kind of questions. Apparently they're doing something where they put a battery pack to your brain. They somehow stopped. They had at one time tried to put a radiation chip and leave it in my brain. And I told them no, I did not want to do. They also tried to put a port on me for the chemo. And I was like, no, you're just going to stick me each time. And they fought with me on that. But I was like, I'm not going to put something just in my body and just keep it there. I just don't want that. That's not cool. Now, if you're doing that and that's your choice, that's more power to you. I just didn't want to do it. And I've heard a lot of people say pretty rough things about doing this radiation, and I can totally get that. So, yeah. So anyway, so this woman then reveals her husband has died on it. And then so she was then realized, so that was like a total, I was like, oh, okay. Yikes. Because I was hoping, man, I hope I could help somebody. Because that's what I was trying to do, and I'm trying to do with this radio show, is because there are not enough examples, and I'm really not finding it out there. Like this other group that I joined, it seemed like every message I get from is, please take me off this site, because they don't usually say because so-and-so's, but that's what it means. They want, and it's just every episode, and I'm like, gosh, maybe we could do a slight variation on this. This doesn't sound very, uplifting. Yeah, so it's just kind of weird. And it just makes you step back about, like, just your survival and just everybody. like, whoa, got really, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know why. Just trying to look, well, why did I survive? Like she was asking us, there must be some medical reason or something like that. She was looking at it. And I was like, you got me. You really do. But I mean, I could say the protocol was a little different on that. But I think it's just so subjective with where your cancer is, what your body, I don't know, it's all kind of factors. It's so hard to compare somebody else's cancer and a treatment. Though what I'm seeing with this is just not a very high percentage. I mean, it's a very low percentage survival. I haven't come across somebody that was like 14 years or like that yet. I'm 5. I'm hearing every now and then, but yeah. So what I'm gonna think about doing is one of the things that I started on is I wrote a song called Monkey Mind. That's how I like to end the show. So what I may do is I may plug it in for real this time and try and do that. So to manage my calls here. All right. So my monkey mind. If I can get on this sucker. Got a new phone here. Gotta do the knobs here. So yeah. So this is my monkey mind. Monkey mind. Rolling. Chimpanzee wearing a suit and fedora sitting in the bar. He tells a joke to the bartender, who's also a chimpanzee. The joke is about 2 penguins. Hey monkey, I want you to love